So we have recently gotten some pretty massive potential leaks for Diablo 4, specifically that we got a new Diablo 4 vendor build called 2.5.x Paladin. So this is a new encrypted build that's called Paladin, obviously seemingly pointing towards a new Paladin class coming. Now, a new Paladin class is something that I think the majority of the player base has just been wanting, and the developers very much know that. And not only do I think there's a very good chance we're getting Paladin with the next expansion or sometime in the near future, but that I think this next expansion is going to be wholly based. Now, Wowhead did give an explanation of why this is here. So Diablo 4 has updated vendor builds under the codename Fenris in the past, and even once a game was officially announced, vendor builds continue to use the Fenris designation. So this is a Fenris Vendor 3 build, so a Diablo 4 codename. Every season vendor builds are updated. Season 10 is going to be patch 2.4.0, since season 9 is patch 2.3.0, so season 11 is certainly going to be 2.5, or this could be a pre-expansion patch similar to how World of Warcraft debuts pre-patch events. So whatever change this build contains would debut before a new Diablo 4 expansion. Major expansions increase by a whole patch number, i.e. it would be 2.0 or 3.0. So going into Vessel of Hatred, patches went from like 1.5 or something to 2.0. That's the same way World of Warcraft patches work. That's the same way Diablo 4 patches work. Almost certainly a 2.5.x Paladin build of the game, if it was going to be showing us Paladins, this would almost certainly be some like pre-patch or reveal patch of an expansion, which would probably allow people to try out the Paladin before the actual expansion releases, because it's almost certain that we're not getting a new class with the season. If we got that, that would be pretty crazy. If we got that, that would be a really massive change for the future of Diablo 4 seasons. Almost certainly this is indicating that when we get the reveal of the next expansion, there will be some patch that allows us to download and try out the Paladin class, maybe some like beta or alpha test for the new expansion. And if you're new to the Diablo franchise, Paladins have been in games previously. In fact, it was one of the launch classes of Diablo 2, which is why so many people want it. We also got the Crusader in Diablo 3, which was very similar to a Paladin. It had some differences, but it was very similar in that it had a lot of the same type of skills. It was this wholly based tanky character that could use shields, primarily use shields. So those classes are pretty similar, and based upon a lot of the development of Diablo 4 being very inspired by, at least tonally, by Diablo 2, and a good chunk of the systems going kind of back to similar systems of Diablo 2, that would almost certainly give us the Paladin and not the Crusader. I do think the second expansion is going to be wholly based. In fact, we did get that leak before the launch of Diablo 4, where we had all of the launch characters, and then we also got some art with all the launch characters and another holy looking character using a shield and a spear. We don't know what ever happened with that, because I was very clearly pointing towards a new class, and I did have a theory that the first expansion was going to be wholly based, but then we obviously got Vessel of Hatred, and I do think there is a good reason for that, and potentially they were teasing a wholly based expansion because they could have been working on this expansion since before the game launched, because we have already gotten it announced previously before the game even launched. There would be two expansions being worked on at a time, kind of just how development works. They would be primarily working on one. The second one would be in like pre-production and would start production more towards the end of the first one. That's just kind of how game development works. But there is also the possibility that the first expansion of Diablo 4 was originally going to be wholly based, maybe opening up the gates of heaven or something like that, which have been closed for the entirety of Diablo 4. Maybe angels come down or something like that. Could be more wholly based. But then they had the idea for the Vessel of Hatred and Nahantu, and they decided to go with that one first instead of the wholly based expansion. So they would have just maybe flipped when the expansions would have been released, and now for expansion 2 we're getting the holy expansion, Paladins being added. But I do think it's almost a guarantee we get Paladins for the second expansion. By far the most requested class. They know it would bring a ridiculous amount of players either back to the game or to the game in the first place, and it will just create a ridiculous amount of hype no matter what people think about previous seasons or something like that. Just adding the Paladin would be enough hype for an expansion in itself, and I think the people working on Diablo 4 know that. I think the Paladin is coming with this next expansion, and this leak seems to also indicate that we're going to be able to play it before the expansion is actually released. And I think that not only would the Paladin just bring a lot of people back and be good for the game in terms of player enjoyment, but I think it'd just be really good for the game in terms of getting a bunch of new players and returning players. The Paladin is just a win in every way. I think one of the things that's not really disputable with Diablo 4 is that the base gameplay and class design specifically has been pretty good in terms of theming around the class, giving them really cool abilities and things like that. While the skill trees have been kind of boring, the class design themselves, the theming, all that stuff has been really good. I think with the Spiritborn, they actually made the best version of a Diablo class we've ever gotten. So I think Paladin, design-wise, will be incredibly good, and basically everybody will be playing it. But that's all I want to go over, so thanks for watching.